Hello, and welcome. We are finally back, and boy, is it good to be back. Welcome to the Weekend Warrior Fantasy Football Show. I am your host. My name is Luke, and gosh, it feels good to be back. It was a long summer. A lot of things have happened over the summer. Like what? Most of us have gotten married now, outside of maybe me, Jake, and Jordan. Is that the only three of us that aren't married? RIP. The Queen has died. That one's kind of more recent. I'm not very topical. I don't really keep up with what happens in the news. I just keep up with football and baseball, unfortunately, and I don't have a whole lot to talk about on the baseball side. So let's get into football. We are finally back with the Weekend Warrior Fantasy Football Show. Today it'll be just me. Pretty much on my own fault there. Didn't really get the format down until now. But we're here, and we're going to go over week one. But first, I would like to take a second to go through the league results here. Normally, I like to start out every show with the league results, talk about each game, and then get right into the fantasy results. So let's do that here. I'm going to try to share my screen, and it will be a little rusty starting out, but I think we're here. I think we are here. And I've got the NFL page pulled up. So let's just go through kind of game by game, and I'll just say a couple things about them, and we'll go from there. Starting out with a Thursday night game, the first game of the 2022-2023 season. We had the Bills versus the Super Bowl champs, the Rams. Bills just blew them out. It was a close game at halftime, but Josh Allen went sicko mode in the second half. Could be a little bit of a Rams Super Bowl hangover season for them. They did lose some pieces, one of which was on the Bills that played a really good game. So not much else to say about that one. Kind of got uncompetitive there in the second half. Then we go to the Eagles-Lions. Close one. For the Lions picking right up where they left off last season. With another loss, but had some good offensive things going on. Obviously, a high-scoring game, but Eagles with Jalen Hurts able to put up enough. Then we go to the rainy Chicago game, the Bears versus the 49ers. Lots of eyes are on Trey Lance this year. I do think this is a game where they had two very similar quarterbacks in Trey Lance and Justin Fields. Justin Fields came out on top this game. Probably one of the hardest celebration videos of the year, with the head first slide into like that defensive stance flex. That was sick. That was one of the coolest celebrations I've ever seen. And this one was the absolute heart attack game. The Steelers versus the Bengals here. This one was tough to watch. I started off watching this at a restaurant with my parents, behind enemy lines, me being a Steelers fan in Cincinnati. Tough one to sit and watch. But luckily I was home for the rest of it, because we're out in public, I feel like I might have been murdered. But what was this game? This has to be up there with one of the craziest starting games in NFL history. Just a kickathon, missed kicks, having a long snapper. Apparently it's pretty crucial. The Bengals didn't have theirs, and the timing was off for a really good kicker, and that's all it really takes. And then with just seconds left in overtime, Boswell making it happen for the Steelers, win by 3 points. Patriots, Dolphins, Mac Jones struggled quite a bit. Dolphins offense looks like a lot of fun. I know they only put up 20 points, but They have a lot of good pieces out there, and the new acquisition with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle obviously being there. I like their offense, the way it looks. Patriots, obviously, all the reports that you heard from the preseason were true. Their offense is not great. Mac Jones might be a little shaken up, I believe, in that game as well. Not sure it would have mattered this time. Dolphins win 20-7. Then you got the Browns-Panthers game. Obviously, the biggest headline here is the Baker Mayfield revenge game. I think even in this little thumbnail. Obviously, Baker going from the Browns because they just straight up didn't believe in him to the Panthers and winning out the job over Sam Darnold there. Did put up a really nice little comeback drive late in the game to kick a field goal and go ahead, but unfortunately that wasn't enough. Brissett took the Browns down and they got the same treatment back, and the Browns won 26-24. So, and apparently Myles Garrett didn't return Baker's text, which has got to be the funniest headline of week one for me. Then you got the I don't even remember what division this is. I'm not good with remembering divisions. I don't know. I know they're in the same division. I don't know which one it is. Something, maybe the AFC Central or something. I don't know. That might not even be a division. Colts versus Texans. We got a week one tie. It's a hot start. A week one tie between the Colts and the Texans. Colts, obviously, with their new quarterback, Matt Ryan. Probably should have came out on top here because he was facing off against Davis Mills. That's right. General Mills still out there for the Texans. Obviously, they got rid of Deshaun for personal reasons. I don't know if that's even fair to say. But the Colts actually ended up in a tie with the Texans on this one. Kind of just a sloppy game. The Colts are kind of starving for weapons, and the Texans are starving for talent in general. But the Texans kind of stayed with them the whole game. Came out as a draw there, 20-20. Saints versus Falcons. Falcons still kind of devoid of real playmakers. I'd say they're, obviously you think about Darren Waller, an aging Cordarrelle Patterson being their premier players. They brought over Marcus Mariota. He's their starting quarterback now. The Saints are kind of an unknown quantity. I think, after looking at week one, you think early candidates for comeback player of the year looks like Michael Thomas after that brutal leg injury that he suffered a couple of seasons ago that he still hasn't come back from fully yet. But week one, he looked really good. Jameis pulling out the W. Couple of good plays from Taysom Hill there. One of the most interesting utility players in the league, scoring a touchdown, I believe. So Saints come out on top 27-26 with their new head coach as well. Ravens Jets. It's kind of, I know they're in my Steelers division, but it's kind of good to see the Ravens get off to a good start. You kind of hate to see what happened to them last year with the injury plagued. I don't think there was a more injury plagued team last year than the Ravens. Jets obviously still kind of who did they even start as their quarterback in this game? I don't remember who the quarterback was. Oh, no disrespect to Joe Flacco. I think Zach Wilson's hurt. Why not start Mike White, WKU alum, right? What's going on there? That's why I couldn't remember. It was Joe Flacco. That is just, that is too sweet. Not surprisingly, they didn't put up a whole lot of points. Ravens defense is always going to be pretty good, but Lamar getting things done. Hopefully they can surround him with some decent weapons this year because he himself is an absolute beast. But Ravens kind of coming away with a victory there in Jets territory. The next game, Jaguars versus the Commanders. Commanders coming out on top 28-22. First of all, congratulations to the Washington franchise for having a team name. Did they have a team name last year? or were they the football team? Technically, that is a team name, but pretty commanding win this time. Trevor Lawrence not really finding a whole lot of synergy with his guys yet. I know you think about right off the bat, you think about Robinson, and they still got Marvin Jones. Just a couple underthrown balls. Still kind of shaky for those guys. But the Commanders, I mean, you got to hand it to Carson Wentz. He had a really good day. I think Scary Terry McLaurin had a decent day. Kind of got started a little late, but obviously able to pull out the win. The real question is, what are Carson Wentz's ankles going to do as the season goes on? But Commanders come out with a win to start the season. Next game, you have the Vikings and the Packers. I don't know if this is going to be a shared sentiment, but I did see a lot of Packers in a lot of top tens. I know you got the reigning MVP, but I just didn't understand. I felt like they were going to miss a lot of weapons, especially their star receiver Davante Adams, who's on the Raiders now. And this game showed that Aaron Rodgers did not have a lot of synergy with a lot of those rookie receivers. Obviously, they didn't have their number one weapon Lazard. But on the flip side, man, did the Vikings look good. Kirk Cousins looked really accurate. They have a lot of weapons. Obviously, Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, who looks like he might be the premier wide receiver of the league with this team. But they also look good on the defensive side of the ball, getting pressure to Aaron. So keep an eye on the Vikings this year. They win. They win against the Packers 23-7. The next game will be a heartbreaker for some of the league's faithful. Giants beat the Titans 21-20. Their guy missed a field goal at the end. That's really all it came down to. The offense looked good for the Titans in the first half. Good being a little bit subjective, but couldn't really for whatever reason, get Derrick Henry going too much in the second half. Saquon, on the other hand, looked really good. He kind of wore the Titans down a little bit with a little late rally. Good for Saquon. You hate to see a player kind of injury plagued to start his career, but it seems like he's came back in a big way. Let's hope he can stay healthy. Because he's gotta buy a few yards for second and third down for Danny Dimes out there. But able to do it in this game, 21-20 to the Giants. The next game, Chargers versus Raiders. Chargers coming out on top 24-19. One of the more fun teams to watch this year. I know Dylan will be happy to hear me say that, but the Chargers have also they kind of remind me a lot of the Vikings. They have a lot of weapons. Obviously, Justin Herbert is one of the more exciting quarterbacks in the league this year because he's young and he's got an absolute cannon for an arm. And he's got plenty of guys around him to catch the football, Mike Williams and Eckler underneath. Obviously, they're running back, but he's a very good pass catcher. Keenan Allen. They have a lot of guys that can step up and make plays in big moments. And on the other side of the ball, Derek Carr trying to find some synergy with Davante Adams. I feel like it'll get there, but still not maybe not as convincing of a win for the Chargers as they would have hoped. The Raiders are a decent team, but they did struggle a lot based off of what I saw on third down. So they'll have to work on that going forward, but they're able to get a win against the Raiders in week 1. Next game is the Chiefs Cardinals. I feel like when you see these two teams line up against each other, you just know that points are going to get scored, and that's exactly what happened. But the Chiefs scored way more. Patrick Mahomes, just reminding everybody that he's still, it's not a stretch to say he's still the best quarterback in the league, I don't think. And he proved it by scoring the most points out of any team in week 1. Obviously, you still have Travis Kelce. They didn't look like they were missing Tyreek Hill very much. Juju and Cole Hardman having decent games. So they just kind of wear you down. He's not going to make a whole lot of mistakes on the other side of the ball. The Cardinals, I felt like they missed D-Hop quite a bit, but I saw a couple videos, Kyler Murray making the wrong reads. I think the big knock on him apparently is that he doesn't watch enough film. Apparently he didn't watch enough against the Chiefs this week, but really, if your defense gives up 44 points to any team, that's going to be really tough on a quarterback to kind of make that up. And we're not able to do so. 44-21 was that final score line. And then in the last game of the night on Sunday, you had the Buccaneers Cowboys. The game going the way of the Buccaneers, 19-3 in Jerry's world there. Tom getting it done, obviously. Probably not the most clinical of games. I know he had a weird offseason where he didn't practice quite as much as normal. You think of Tom, you think of precision and working hard in the offseason. Maybe not this year. He's like 60 years old. But he knows what he's doing, obviously. The Cowboys, however, shambles. They're the only team that did not score a touchdown this week. I know there's already plenty of Cowboys hate in the group chat, and I'm sorry about that, but come on. Only team not to score a touchdown. To make matters worse, Dak is injured, probably out. I'm going to say 5 to 6 weeks with a thumb injury. Those things can kind of plague you if you don't rest it a little bit. Obviously, being a quarterback, you need the thumb. Who knows when we'll see him next, but Cowboys really couldn't get anything done offensively. The Buccaneers looked good. Leonard Fournette looked like he was back and ready to play. Mike Evans doing what he does. They're going to be another solid team again this year. They have, the best quarterback of all time. So looking good to start their season as well. And then you got last night's game. I'm filming this on Tuesday. Last night's game between the Broncos and the Seahawks. You saw basically can be summed up as a rookie head coach making rookie head coach mistakes. I really thought this game was won. I had a really close look at this game. Obviously, it was, one of the 2 or 3 that I watched pretty closely, but it looked like this one was won in the trenches. The Seahawks were able to get quite a bit of pressure on Russell Wilson, obviously, who has been traded from the Seahawks to the Broncos in the offseason. Let's ride. And they were able to get to him on the other side of the ball. Geno Smith looked like he had all day back there. I don't know what was going on with the Broncos pass rush, but it wasn't there. It was non-existent. He had a heck of a first half and a pretty decent second half. Kind of a low-scoring affair, but the Broncos really just could not get it done in the red zone. I think they had 2 fumbles, only scored 1 touchdown. That was on like a deep ball. And then at the very end of the game, they have a chance. I think it was like a 4th and 5 or something, 5 yards. You just paid your quarterbacks $200-something million, and they decided to go for the second longest field goal, in history. And wouldn't you know, it didn't work out. So a lot of people flaming him on Twitter right now, probably rightfully so. I think that was probably universally the wrong call, but good for the Seahawks. They're projected to be a low scoring team. Honestly, the Broncos are projected to be a kind of a high end team this year. Didn't turn out that way in week 1. So that's just week 1. Those are the results of the games. So let's get into the fantasy results here. This is the scoreboard from week 1. Talk about the first game here. Let's look through the teams first. There's the teams list there. Notable team name changes would be The Cooper Troopers. I really don't think Andrew's team name was the Cooper Troopers last year. Gotta admit, I don't know what it was. I can't remember what his team name was. Everybody else seems to be kind of sticking with what they had, other than Tanner. Tanner switched it to Watson's Parlor. Assume that there's a name like that in every league this year, but it is a great one. And I changed my team name to the Fairfield Mudruckers up here. Don't really have a whole lot to say about my team name other than the fact that I think it is a reference to a comedy Bang Bang skit, but I also think that Mudruckers is just a really funny word. I don't know. The ugly truth. Tanner's team beat me in week 1. I stayed up to kind of watch the game, hoping that Russell, who is my quarterback, get me a little bit more. But obviously, if you can't get in the end zone, that's kind of tough to do. I don't know if I'm going to go through every box score. I think that'd be a little lengthy. But obviously, Tanner having Jamar Chase helped. Normally, when you see a defense in the top 3, that's not a great sign. Even though the Pittsburgh D, I was happy to see have like 5 turnovers. Crazy, but not the best sign. Those are 3 really good players that he has that scored really high. So I think no, he did not win the top scorer of the league, but really good performance by his team. Hopefully my team can pick it up in the next week. I got to check every single time for who's who, because I just cannot commit that to memory. I've got too much garbage in my brain to do so anyway. But Jordan coming out with a first round win over Randall. Jalen Hurts, the Buffalo defense getting it done. Leonard Fournette, who I mentioned, had a good game. This is very interesting because you see here, it looked like his Randall's top 3 players outperformed Jordan's by a pretty decent margin. I do want to dive into this one because I kind of want to see what happened here. Randall just must not have got any production from anybody else. Oh, yep, I'm right. Waddle had a decent game. Mark Andrews had a decent game, but look at all these stinkers. Robert Woods, Thielen kind of didn't do a whole lot. Obviously, the Cowboys D is tough, and then Prater. Yikes. That's not even the kicker that got hurt, too. And then on the other side of the ball, I mean, you got to like what you see there. Everybody's scoring in double digits besides Mike Williams, who had a crazy year last year, and he's got the best kicker in the league. That's an interesting one. Obviously, it was a close game. Losing by 4 points is never great, but Randall's going to kind of hope that the rest of his team can kind of pick it up, because those top 3 players got it done, and they are good players. So, wow, what do we got here? The Washington Wife Beaters, Jake's team, coming out on top over over Zach's team. Let's take a look here. Got some really good receiver core here. It's kind of surprising to see AJ Dillon up here. I know he was kind of the only Packers player that had any success. But it's when Devontae and AJ Brown both looked incredible in their first games. On the other side here, you got Diggs. Javonte Williams is probably the best offensive piece for the Broncos that night as well. And then Najee scoring in his top 3 after getting an injury mid-game is not really a great sign. Meaning, if I click into here, I'd probably see a whole lot of tougher scores. But not a bad start for Jake's team. Be an interesting component of this year's fantasy after kind of struggling the last couple of years, I think. Andrew's team, the Cooper Troopers, getting a win over Austin's team. Yikes. Not a good start out of the gate for Austin, who I think placed last year. I've already said a lot about the Cowboys. Maybe I should lay off of them. I'm sorry, Austin, but He kind of got walloped in week 1. Andrew having Cooper Kupp is always great. Josh Allen, I mean, those two right there are a cheat code. Then you got Jerry Jeudy, who also had a decent game. Let's see who Zach had. Zach Ertz being top 3 scorer is no bueno. Aaron Jones kind of got outshined by AJ Dillon. Terry had a average game at best. I'm not going to click into there. I don't want to see the the underperformers, but not a good start. He comes out as the low score of the week. And then we have the game with the high score. Got Dylan's team, Nuts and Bolts, coming out over McKinley's team. McKinley have a pretty good top line production, Mahomes, Mixon, and Gibson. But Lord have mercy, Justin Jefferson, Saquon Barkley, Michael Pittman Jr. I mean, big comeback game from Saquon. Justin Jefferson, like I said earlier, is already my candidate for receiver of the year. I know it's just week 1, but he was everywhere in that game. And that's going to be a good asset to have. Don't know if you're going to get that player if you try to go after him in a trade, unless you give up the whole kitchen sink there. But Dylan coming out as our top scorer this week. Way to go. There's no, as far as I know, there's no compensation for that. And or, on the other side, there's no penalty for scoring the least amount of points. Also, on that note, I don't think at this point we have a punishment for the lowest ranked team at the end of the year. But this is kind of how week 1 rounded up. What do I want to do next? Maybe look at projections. I think that's what I wanted to do next. The late afternoon coffee. So trending upward, we had Jordan's team come out with a win. Tanner's team beat mine. And for some reason, I'm in the number 2 spot after a loss to Tanner's team. Very interesting. Very interesting. Maybe it's because I had St. Brown on my bench. I really don't know. I don't know why that might be the case. But obviously, Austin's team moving down to 10th. Jake's team moved up 1 after a win. This is a very interesting mechanic of the ESPN fantasy format. Don't know if I'm going to include this in I don't know if I'm going to include this in videos going forward. We can take a look at some of the transactions. The latest one was me. I picked up, or I had to get Hooper because Kittle was out. Wow. Austin dropped Claypool, who had a decent game, and picked up Watkins, who didn't. That was a tough one. Anytime I did not mean for this to turn into a Austin roast session. I love Austin, but I mean, not a good look so far. But hopefully he can turn it around. Week 2. I don't think his team is nearly as bad as what he's shown. So let's take a look at the top scoring players for week 1, starting with quarterbacks. I kind of loosely go through the top 5 or so. Obviously Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen being at the top. You couldn't ask for a better graphic there. I think they're widely regarded as 2 as the best in the league right now. It's a little interesting to see Wentz and Hurts up here, both going up against, I guess, not so great defenses, but well done. And then Herbert being top 5 is not unusual. Let's go to running backs. Check out the top scoring running backs. Saquon being kind of lower on the running back chart, picking up the most points is nice to see. Randall's two backs. Gosh, how did he lose this week? He had Taylor and Swift. I mean, that's one heck of a running back core, showing that they can score in the top 5. Who has Kareem Hunt scored 4th? He might not have had him in the lineup, to be honest with you. Really good production there. And then Cordarrelle Patterson had a really nice game. That's also nice to see for the Falcons. Those are your top 5 there. Let's take a look at the wide receivers. Justin Jefferson off to a really hard start. Cooper Kupp. I mean, these two guys are premier guys. Really, nothing about the top 6 or 7 here is going to surprise anybody. Duvernay is coming out on top of like maybe the top 10 here. I think is a little surprising. Might not even be a bad time to claim him, but while I'm sitting here mid video, I'm not going to make any moves. Let's take a look at tight end here. Kelsey being at the top. I think everybody would have bet on that. OJ Howard's kind of an unknown quantity, but interesting to see him kind of get going. Taysom Hill, the way New Orleans uses him, I think he got a touchdown out of it, 81 yards. Kind of a crazy day. Gerald Everett and Will Dissly makes sense. A lot of unclaimed tight ends at the top here. A lot of claimed guys, including who I used at the bottom. So tight end might be something to look at for everybody in the league this year. I'm not going to go over flex. Guess we can look at the defenses. Steelers, Dolphins, Bills, lots of takeaways. Obviously, 5 turnovers is great. May not get a quick. Oh, yeah, Young Ho. Most of the offense for the Falcons. But probably not going to go over those in the future, but figured I'd kind of go over it, since we get into it a little bit. Let's try to let's see if there's any player news that we can kind of talk about here. This is something else that I'd like to include, but it's kind of hard to get one source for all because the injury status has changed quite a bit. So maybe in the future when we have guests on the show, other people in the group, we can kind of talk about the key players for them that are injured. And then another segment that we can include later would be the biggest flops of the week and the biggest surprises of the week. But for now, I just wanted to kind of simply go through it and everything. Juju may have gotten a little shaken up. I think the big ones off the top of my head would be Dak, Mac Jones, Najee having a foot injury. Maybe even mentioning the the Butker injury for the Chiefs was interesting. I don't know of anything too serious. Maybe I'm grossly misremembering something, but for now, fairly healthy week 1 for offensive players. I don't know anybody that's whole season is wrecked just yet. Just some kind of unfortunate, untimely injuries. Still plenty of time to pick up key players heading into next week, which also will bring me into the last part. I always think that I'm going to make these videos shorter, and then it kind of always ends up that I talk for an hour. But let's look ahead towards this week of NFL games with Thursday night with a banger. I think a big knock last year was that the Thursday night games weren't that great. They come out firing this year. Chargers, Chiefs on Thursday night. I think everybody will be tuned into that one. Patriots taking on the Steelers. I'm not going to go over these. Maybe just the Thursday night games. I think that would be fine. If I'm going to try to put these out in the middle of the week, Thursday night game will be a big one to look at. Obviously, both teams starting out with a win. Two marquee quarterbacks. I mean, this one could be a good look at who's going to be an AFC Super Bowl bid this year. But they'll have their hands full with each other. Expect a shootout. I don't think either defense is too refined, but let's take a look at week 2, what it's looking like for the matchups in fantasy this year, or for week 2. You got me and Zach facing off against each other. Right now, my projected total's higher, but we both are 0-1. We both need a win. Dylan looking to pick up his second win over Randall, who's looking for his first. Then you got Jordan's team going up against Jake's team. Both started out 1-0. Somebody's got to lose there. Tanner's team going up against Andrew's. And you got, gosh, I can never remember. Licensed Khalil is McKinley going up against Austin. So we will see what the landscape looks like next week. Hopefully, if I can figure out how to edit this thing and get it out in the next day or two, possibly this afternoon, then we can get the format ready for the rest of the year. And I would love to have, other people on and talk about, their team, how they've, maybe just their life, maybe not even talk about football. But going forward, I think it'd be nice to have, other people on the show. But for now, I think that was a pretty decent wrap up of week 1. And I'm super excited to be back in the fantasy scape. Hopefully I can come out with a win in week 2, but I think that'll do it for this week's episode. Thanks for stopping by.